In this anime, you never know how the character you favor will suddenly meet their demise. A mysterious organization has initiated a deadly battle royale game, with the world's top 12 fighters participating. The victor is granted the fulfillment of any wish. Conspiracy, murder, manipulation, betrayal. All tactics are fair game. A mature woman wielding dual guns slowly approaches in the hall. Known by the codename Inun Shishi, she is the last warrior to arrive. Ahead, a decapitated body lies silently, already a casualty before the battle has even begun. A man incessantly argues that he is not the perpetrator. Looking at the blood-stained blade, even a boar would know he is lying. Duo de Couple loudly announces the rules of the game. There are 12 black gems on the table. Each participant must swallow one. The winner will be the first to collect all 12 gems. Once ingested, Duo de Couple explains, the gems are highly toxic and will react with stomach acid. Death is certain after 12 hours, unless one is the victor and receives the antidote. The most efficient way to collect the gems is through evisceration. As Duo de Couple exits, the great battle officially begins. An arm raises in the crowd. Xiaoyu proposes to end the battle peacefully by staging a mock fight, with the final victor reviving everyone. Logically, each warrior participating should have their own wish to fulfill, and so-called trust holds no value here. Unexpectedly, nearly half agree to join the peaceful faction. However, when Usagi, who previously killed Tatsumi Kyodai Otuto, also raises his hand, the peace faction instantly becomes a joke. At that moment, the ground collapses. Someone has blown up the floor. All the warriors fall, and amidst the dust, Inun Shishi slowly rises. She is a staunch militarist in this game, ruthless and brutal, stopping at nothing to achieve her goals. But who could have guessed that years ago, she was a simple and kind person who spared an enemy at their plea? Her father, without hearing any explanation, slapped her and then killed the soldier himself. Caught between a harsh, almost abusive father and a doting, almost pathological mother, she has striven not to disappoint them. After the 12th battle, her father became the ultimate victor, a supreme honor. All her efforts were for that moment. Yet, on that day, her father declared her sister Kyoko as the next candidate for the battle. Unwilling to accept this, feeling her efforts had never even earned her a chance to prove herself, she decides to destroy her sister. As the captives kneel in a corner, she entices Kyoko to end the lives in front of her and hands her the blade. With a trace of fear and trepidation, Kyoko completes the task given by her sister. In the classroom, Kyoko blushes as she looks at the boy in front of her, feeling a faint joy. However, the next moment, she sees the boy she loves kissing her sister. Shots are fired, lives pass before her, and eventually the boy she once loved also dies by her hand. The passage of life brings her an unprecedented thrill, and Kyoko's heart becomes increasingly twisted. That day, she even slaughtered all the servants in her home. In the dimly lit detention room, the familiar, beguiling voice of her sister resounds again, driving Kyoko completely insane. All that remains in her heart is destruction. Her beloved sister has slowly dragged her into the abyss. At that final moment, she ends her own life. At that instant, the Zodiac warrior Inun Shishi makes her entrance, advancing with graceful steps towards the battlefield she's about to face. She possesses absolute strength and cruelty towards anyone. Inun Shishi looks towards Usagi, who slowly emerges. She does not underestimate her opponent, capable as he is of easily killing another member of the Zodiac. She has already devised her plan of attack in her mind, ready to strike first with her weapons, Fate of Love and End of Love, using distance to dodge attacks and the opponent's reloading breaks to lure him closer, relying on logical patterns to enable relentless shooting. She will extract the gems from the dismembered flesh. Inun Shishi has absolute confidence in herself, knowing that no one but the terrifying Ushi could potentially end this battle. The next moment, Usagi charges as she anticipated. However, two mysterious arms suddenly extend, gripping her tightly. In just an instant, a blade pierces through her throat and blood spurts from her mouth. His eyes are filled with disbelief. Inun no Shishi struggles to turn her head towards the back, unable to believe she has miscalculated. It is Otuto, the necromancer who should have been dead, controlling corpses. With a bitter smile and reluctance, her world finally turns pitch black. Usagi claims that from now on, she will also be his friend. When I first saw Inun no Shishi, I thought she was either the protagonist or one of the antagonist bosses. Originally, many people watched the anime just for this character, whose alluring beauty and ruthless, cruel nature, combined with her seemingly unlimited shooting ability, gave her a very powerful impression in the anime. But unexpectedly, such a character was killed off in the first episode. After Inun no Shishi's death, Usagi extracts the gem from her stomach and uses his ability to control corpses to add another member to his team. Meanwhile, Sharyu and Nazumi become teammates, temporarily retreating to the underground to avoid detection. In fact, Sharyu was the one who had blown up the building earlier. As she proposed the peace alliance, she suddenly sensed a clear intent to kill. To protect the others present, Sharyu chooses to blow up the floor to end the discussion. Meanwhile, Dotsuku heads alone to the underground parking lot. His ability involves secreting a venom through his fangs that kills enemies instantly. As an expert in poisons, he immediately suspects there is something wrong with the gem Duoda couple had them swallow, so he synthesizes an antidote in advance, ensuring he would not die even after 12 hours. Now, all Dotsuku needs to do is hide and wait for the others to kill each other off and pick up the pieces. However, just then, an unexpected visitor appears. Dotsuku immediately prepares to kill her, but Niwatori, appearing completely harmless, not only doesn't attack but also throws away her weapon. She expresses a desire to team up with the boss and reveals her ability to communicate with birds and share their vision. Meanwhile, Niwatori also reveals Usagi's identity as a necromancer, who is now teaming up with the deceased Inun no Shishi's Otuto for hunting. To Dotsuku, this girl, who seems to know everything about him, appears like a fool, just cannon fodder. It would be a waste not to use her to his advantage. With this in mind, he lets down his guard and agrees to cooperate with her to first eliminate Usagi. On their way, he shares what he knows with Niwatori. First, never provoke Ushi. This guy is unreasonably strong. Just run if you encounter him. Although the Tatsumi Kyudai Ani and Tatsumi Kyudai Otuto are strong together, Otuto has been killed, significantly reducing Ani's threat. Then there's Sharyu, a pure pacifist whose peace proposals have ended many wars. Her abilities are not to be underestimated. As for Nazumi, although he seems clueless and not at all like a warrior, both he and Niwatori have a strangely familiar feeling, as if they had seen this boy before. At this moment, Niwatori receives a message. Usagi and his controlled corpses are operating separately. Now only Inun no Shishi is left wandering alone on the streets, presenting a prime opportunity for attack. However, Dotsuku suspects this might be a trap set by Usagi. To ensure his own safety, he decides to send Niwatori ahead to scout. Before this, Dotsuku injects her with a stimulant to maximize her physical and mental capabilities, enhancing her combat abilities. He temporarily strengthens Niwatori and sends her alone to confront what might be the decoy Inun no Shishi, then to draw out the hidden Usagi and Otuto. By this time, the toxin has spread in Niwatori's body. Dotsuku instructs her to relax and control her power, but the next second, her hand reaches towards him. She is the ceiling of combat power in the 12 battles. While others still use cold weapons, firearms, and superpowers, Sharyu has already mastered the art of controlling everything including gas, liquid, solid. Honestly, with such an overpowering ability, she doesn't leave much room for others to survive. She could instantly kill everyone at the start if she wished. Yet, such a formidable character is a true saint, influencing others as well. Niwatori, originally timid and cautious, becomes weakened under her excessively kind influence, leading to a mental breakdown during her fight with Ushi, resulting in her immediate death. Just as she tries to persuade Nazumi to join her in stopping the war, Nazumi bluntly tells her to keep her distance. Those who are rescued only enjoy their peaceful lives, without caring for the lives of those who fight. He refuses to risk his own life to maintain peace for others. Sharyu rebukes Nazumi for not being worthy of being a warrior. Suddenly, a swarm of zombie birds flies into the subway tunnel. Sharyu pulls Nazumi and they quickly escape. Just as they open a manhole cover, a blade swings at them. Thankfully, Sharyu dodges the attack just in time. Otudo's blade keeps slashing, leading to a struggle where Sharyu knocks the knife away. At this moment, Usagi approaches from a distance. Seeing the two of them, Sharyu lets Nazumi handle Otudo while she confronts Usagi herself. The plan proceeds normally. Otudo is led away while Sharyu faces Usagi alone. She had numerous chances to eliminate him, but continually hesitates, exhausting all means to convince Usagi to cooperate and save everyone. Despite knowing that he killed Inun no Shishi, how could such a life-disregarding person possibly yearn for peace? Yet Sharyu refuses to believe it. Suddenly, Usagi stops his attacks. She thinks her words have had an effect. At that moment, a horde of zombie birds erupts from beneath the manhole cover, swarming towards Sharyu to bite her. But as the pinnacle of combat power, these zombie birds are no match for Sharyu. She dodges Usagi's attacks while smashing all of them. During the fight, Sharyu realizes that as a necromancer, Usagi's combat skills are far inferior to her own. Knowing he couldn't win, Usagi immediately flees. Sharyu quickly catches up. After fully understanding his attack patterns, she no longer feels any burden. She just needs to get behind him to easily subdue him. The next second, she is stabbed by a blade. Sharyu looks closely and sees Otudo's severed head hanging from a distant tree. All her movements were being watched by the enemy. The next second, she falls. And at the same time, the mastermind behind the 12 battle appears. Their goal is to use this game to have elite warriors proxy the wars and then distribute the world based on bets placed on the victor. Initially, they believed that the rabbit, dragon, and monkey were the most likely to survive this game. However, they didn't expect Sharyu to be killed so easily. As for those who might turn the tide, it seems Hitsuji is the likely candidate, having been the victor of the 9th battle. Back then, he was the ruthless one who blew up all his opponents along with a space station. Although he's now in his twilight years, it's undeniable that Hitsuji has the most experience. He's participating in the 12 battle in place of his granddaughter, not wanting his loved ones to get hurt. As a cunning old man, when everyone swallowed the deadly gem, he used sleight of hand to hide his in his beard, rendering the 12-hour limit ineffective against him. At the start of the game, he planned to kill everyone immediately, but his plan was disrupted by Sharyu, who sensed the killing intent, forcing him to change his strategy. Hitsuji decides to wait for others to fight each other and then reap the benefits. However, at this moment, Ushi approaches. He slices the door into pieces and suddenly a bomb appears and explodes the building. Hitsuji knows that such a small device couldn't possibly defeat Ushi, so he promptly retreats. Soon after, he manages to shake off his pursuer and escapes to a park where he encounters Tora, the lowest ranked of the 12, drunk. Deciding to give her a ride, Hitsuji is surprised when Tora reveals she has been aware of him. Although momentarily startled and deciding to fight head-on, he is confident that the woman in front of him isn't a cunning mastermind in disguise. Indeed, Tora, being drunk, can barely see people's shadows. Confident of victory, Hitsuji decides to start the battle. However, Tora uses her ultimate technique and extracts the gem in a second. Hitsuji could never have imagined he would capsize in such a shallow ditch. In reality, Tora employs Drunken Fist, becoming stronger as she becomes more intoxicated. This man, to become stronger, daily lifts 200 tons of steel for 10,000 sets of pull exercises, then uses a 30,000-ton hydraulic press for 50,000 sets of squats. But that's not enough. He also consumes 20 kilograms of drugs and injects 300 bags of enhancement fluid daily. Top medical experts continuously perform radical surgeries to transform his body. Any new drugs studied are immediately administered to him. After enduring pressure resistance at 20,000 meters under the sea and direct contact with a 1,500 degrees Celsius steel furnace, the man finally developed an indestructible body. He is Uma, with invincible defense, capable of surviving even the terrifying Ushi. However, it is also because of this battle that he was terrified. Realizing he could actually be killed, Uma became frightened. To save his life, Uma found an underground vault and locked himself inside. As for the deadly poison he had swallowed, He could only pray that the large doses of medicines he took daily would provide some resistance. Just then, a voice came through. Nazumi had unexpectedly appeared beside him. Following Sharyu's battle plan, he had led the zombified Otudo away. Because his own strength was inadequate, and after fighting halfway, Nazumi had hidden here to avoid further danger. He told Uma that Otudo was probably on his way to pursue him, and that escaping quickly was wise. After saying this, Nazumi swiftly fled. But the terrified Uma, how could he possibly leave? After spending so much time fortifying his sanctuary, it was unlikely to be breached. Suddenly, Uma began to feel breathless. Otudo had set the building on fire in an attempt to kill Nazumi. Realizing there was a fire outside, Uma frantically pounded on the walls, but they were too sturdy. Even with his strong physique, he couldn't retain the oxygen in his lungs. Meanwhile, after killing Sharyu, Usagi had taken the gem from her stomach. The distant flames also indicated to him that the Otudo he had sent out had probably discovered something. After Sharyu turned into a zombie, Usagi sent her to investigate. The reinforced concrete floor under Sharyu's power turned to fine sand, and the indestructible steel door was easily blown apart by her. Sharyu walked over to the dead Uma, then dragged his body back to Usagi. However, the thoroughly cooked body seemed unable to be controlled by necromancy. On the other side, Tora encountered Otuto, and they started fighting immediately. Seeing the endless attacks from her opponent, Tora didn't indulge his antics and dislocated his arm on the spot. She then took over the oil tank he had on his back. Smelling the alcohol inside, Tora couldn't resist and started drinking heavily. The noise of their battle attracted Ushi's attention. He approached swiftly and didn't waste words before starting the fight. Just as Ushi was about to dislocate Otuto's legs, Tora, full of anger, approached. She seemed to know Ushi and had some old grudge with him. So even without completely dealing with Otuto, she insisted on fighting him. Suddenly, an arm tightly wrapped around both their throats. Perhaps the ultimate potential of a corpse was being utilized, and they couldn't free themselves. Just as they were about to suffocate, Ushi noticed the alcohol foam at the corner of Tora's mouth, and an idea occurred to him. To escape, he suggested a temporary alliance. Tora agreed, and Ushi then stabbed the ground, sparking the alcohol to ignite. Otudo's severed arm was burnt to a crisp. After freeing herself, Tora flung her burning clothes at Ushi, who caught them and used the same method to char the severed limb. It turned out just as he had guessed. Since Uma's body hadn't turned into a zombie, it meant that the necromancer couldn't control thoroughly cooked bodies. At that moment, high above, Ani was coldly watching everything unfold. "You have been thoroughly used, my dear brother." As members of the Tatsumi Kyudai family, historically the most compatible pair of brothers, their combat power was terrifying. Ani controlled the sky and Otudo manipulated the earth. Either of them alone could match the strongest of the rabbit, ox, and monkey, let alone when teamed up. Otudo had already secured victory in this grand battle, and had even planned to ambush and kill those unalert before the game started. As the two entered the hall, Usagi, dressed as a waiter, approached. Otuto wanted to attack immediately, but Ani, being cautious, stopped him. Suddenly, Otudo sensed fluctuations underground. It turned out that Sharyu was preemptively checking the site for tampering. Distracted, Otudo was caught off guard and swiftly eliminated by Usagi. Ani cursed under his breath at his brother's incompetence and was about to seek revenge when Ushi happened to arrive, preventing the imminent clash. Fast forward to the present, Otudo's corpse rose again. Ushi worried that completely burning it was too difficult, and even chopping it up might not work. In the sky, Ani had already formulated his plan. With Otudo's body engaging the two, it presented the perfect opportunity for him to act. Saving his brother was always the duty of a heroic elder brother. What Ani didn't know was that the zombified Sharyu on the ground had already spotted him. The next second, Usagi appeared behind Ani. Ani couldn't believe he was about to be killed thousands of meters above the ground. Just moments before, with Otudo's body entangling Tora and Ushi, Ani had planned to use this distraction to ambush them. However, He was unaware that the zombified Sharyu had detected him. She fiercely threw Otuto's head into the air, and during its flight, shared its view with Usagi, who pinpointed Ani's exact location. Using Sharyu's immense strength, Usagi leaped directly into the sky. As Ani was about to dive down, a dark shadow suddenly ascended. He stopped and caught the object, only to realize it was his brother's head. In the moment of Ani's confusion, Usagi cleaved him in two. Meanwhile, Ushi and Tora, who were confronting Otuto, noticed something falling from the sky. After the dust settled, Ani's lower half slowly stood up, while his upper half floated in mid-air. Including Otuto's head, it was now 4 against 2, and even if chopped into pieces, these zombies still survived. Ushi noticed a container on Ani's back, suspecting it might contain cryogenic fluid, and shared his theory with Tora. Then, envisioning a proclamation by the brothers, the battle erupted. Ani and Otuto's limbs swiftly charged at the two. With their expertise in physical combat, the zombified Otuto couldn't quite handle Tora. Observing Ani's body and recalling the recent precise analysis, Tora suddenly figured out how to break the situation. After kicking Otuto aside, Tora leaped onto Ani and shattered the container. As the brothers froze into shattered ice, their lives were definitively ended. Meanwhile, from the shadows, Usagi's figure slowly emerged and the battle continued. This time it was 2 against 1, with Tora and Ushi rushing forward, blades and claws intertwining. Usagi was instantly reduced to a pile of mush. As a light rain began to fall from the sky, Tora turned her weapon towards Ushi. Her persistence in this duel stemmed from an incident years ago. Due to an accident, Ushi not only saved the despairing Tora, but also helped her rediscover her life's purpose. From that day, Ushi's image had been etched into her heart. To meet him again, Tora participated in the 12 battles. However, what she hadn't expected was that when they finally faced each other, Ushi didn't recognize her at all. This made Tora feel both lost and furious, prompting her to teach him a lesson. Suddenly, Usagi's severed arm, wielding a machete, charged at them. To save Ushi, Tora pushed him aside, only to be impaled by the blade herself. As she lay in a pool of blood, feeling her life ebb away, the previously chopped-up Usagi began to slowly wriggle. The limbs attempted to finish Tora off completely, but Ushi immediately intervened to stop them. And yet, this was not the end. Fragments of Usagi's flesh were continuously strangling Ushi, who looked increasingly distressed. This was never going to end. He picked up Tora and quickly fled to safety. By the time they reached a safe place, Tora was beyond saving. After burying her, Ushi looked back. This was a monster that couldn't even be called a zombie. He was just an average fighter in the 12 battles. But by leveraging his ruthless slaughter and tactics, he had become the final boss. From beheading Otuto instantly, stabbing Inun Shishi through the throat in the ruined city, killing the strongest Sharyu by exploiting blind spots, to bisecting Ani in midair, each of his victims had shown disbelief as they died. Their bodies, turned into puppets, elevated Usagi to the peak of power. He was as harsh on himself as he was on others. To win the final battle, Usagi cut open his own stomach and stuffed the zombified Sharyu inside as his ultimate weapon. Facing the combined strangulation from Ushi and Tora, he committed suicide. This allowed him to use necromancy to turn himself into a zombie, achieving an undying state. If it hadn't been for Tora's unexpected sacrifice to block that fatal blow, Ushi would have undoubtedly died. With the strongest now dead, the upcoming battles were without suspense. However, even though things didn't go according to plan, Usagi still had a backup. When Ushi saw the monster made of countless pieces of flesh, even he shuddered. If it weren't for Tora begging Ushi to kill her to prevent her from turning into a zombie, the situation would have been even more dire. The two quickly engaged in combat. Ushi realized that even smashing the monster's brain and heart was useless. The only way was to dismember it and burn the parts with gasoline before it could reassemble. Otherwise, he would eventually be worn down. After several rounds of struggle, Ushi seized an opportunity to sever Usagi's legs, then his arms. Seeing the opponent incapacitated, Ushi was about to dismember him completely when an unexpected change occurred. Sharyu burst out of Usagi's stomach. Ushi was completely unguarded, not knowing that Sharyu had also been killed by Usagi. From the first time Usagi was dismembered, he had controlled Sharyu to stuff her into his stomach, which made his form larger than usual. Realizing this, Ushi regretted it. Sharyu could crush his limbs instantly if she chose to, but she refrained, purely because Usagi wanted to kill him personally. This would allow his body to become a puppet in its most complete form. Understanding that there was no turning back, Ushi prepared to bite his tongue and commit suicide. But Sharyu smashed all his teeth with a headbutt, making even suicide impossible. How tragic. In his dying moments, Ushi reflected on the current state of the battle. It seemed that only one fighter had yet to make an appearance. Ushi didn't understand why this unremarkable boy from the battle appeared here. Coming under these circumstances was simply seeking death. Just then, Nazumi slowly pulled out a bundle of high explosives that he had found on Hitsuji's body. Ushi sighed, seeing that Usagi was immobilized due to merging with the husk, and he and Sharyu were restraining each other. Thus, the final victor of this battle turned out to be the boy holding the explosives in front of him. Fate could not be changed. It was better to pass away peacefully. Ushi let go of everything. Perhaps his life was meant to end here. Just as he felt Nazumi looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before, the explosion occurred. After collecting all the gems, Nazumi became the victor of the great battle. Duo de couple wanted to interview Nazumi about some things, but Nazumi chose to refuse. Right after he got off the elevator, the cable snapped, and he fell to his death from 100 meters up. The scene then shifted. Duo de couple asked again if he was willing to assist with their work, and Nazumi's answer remained the same. This time, he chose to leave via the stairs and was then pushed down them. A cycle began. Nazumi kept trying to escape in different ways. After leaving through the main door, he was crushed to a pulp by a steel beam. After exiting through the subway, he was electrocuted to a crisp at the handrail, shot by a gun, run over by a car, impaled by a knife, and blown up by explosives. No matter what he chose, the outcome was always the same, ending in failure. When Duo de couple asked if he was willing to assist them, Nazumi could only agree. Duo de couple expressed their confusion. They completely did not understand Nazumi's actions in this battle. In fact, his victory was utterly unfathomable. Nazumi revealed his ability, running 100 tactics simultaneously and choosing a winning branch from them. This intense mental activity also caused him immense fatigue. In this great battle, there was only one line in which he could win. In most scenarios, it was Ushi and Usagi who ended up as the final winners. Sharyu also won by instantly killing everyone at the start. After telling Duo de couple everything they wanted to know, Nazumi finally saw a safe future for himself. He would envision 700 different scenarios for his victory wish before telling them. He became the sole victor of the 12 battles with the weakest strength. Many people thought Nazumi's ability to simultaneously split 100 world lines was invincible, but on the contrary, this ability was actually terrible. Essentially, this was not something like an infinite resurrection coin. Simultaneously analyzing 100 actions and implementing them would cause unbearable pain to any normal person. Moreover, in this battle, Nazumi only found one winning branch line, and his mind still vividly retained the despair and fear of being killed 99 times. Nazumi had nearly experienced every kind of death these Zodiac warriors could bring him. More importantly, this ability was not necessarily useful. For instance, in the second part, he mistakenly split off a 101st world line. In the battle against the 12 Zodiac signs, Nazumi was the first to be killed by Hitsuji, who then used his skin to disguise himself and kill Ushi and Usagi. Also, in middle school, he liked a girl and confessed to her 100 times, failing each time before later finding out she had a boyfriend, being rejected 100 times, which inflicted 100-fold emotional and mental damage on him. After winning the great battle, the organizers granted him the right to make a wish. So Nazumi used his ability again. Should he really bring back all those who had died before? No, that would also bring back that psychopath. Immortality would also be unbearable. Increasing his ability to 1,000 options would probably increase his pain as well. Conquering the world would be troublesome, wars might disappear, but domination would still exist. Thus, in 100 world lines, Nazumi frantically imagined the future after making a wish, but not a single one satisfied him. His thoughts were so chaotic that they nearly drove him to complete breakdown. At that moment, the host duodecupel came over and said that they could increase the number of wishes from 1 to 100 if he preferred, but Nazumi was unmoved. He had already decided on his next wish. He decided to make himself forget. In one of the 100 world line branches, Nazumi asks these warriors about their wishes. Dotsuku's wish is to become a kindergarten teacher. Due to an error he made during an operation, a child was kidnapped by a psychopath. After rescuing her, he raised her as his own daughter. Dotsuku works hard to pay for his child's living expenses, yet he enjoys it all thoroughly. Old man Hitsuji's wish is for eternal youth, as he has come to realize the value of youth at his age. Niwatori's wish is to give up her identity as a warrior. Her entire life has been controlled by others, constantly obeying her family's commands like a machine. Uma's wish is to gain talent. He fears failure as much as he fears death. The memories of nearly dying from failures as a special forces soldier haunt him, so he resorts to extreme methods to make himself stronger, which might actually stem from an inferiority complex. The most terrifying Usagi's wish is to make friends with everyone in the world. Nazumi was horrified when he heard this, considering all of Usagi's friends are corpses. As for Inun no Shishi, she desires to live in love with 3.5 billion handsome men. In fact, Inun no Shishi and Sharyu also had an artistic connection. Initially, Inun no Shishi deeply hated Sharyu's hypocrisy and participated in the Great War with the goal of killing her. However, in the second part, after witnessing Sharyu being killed by the 12 Zodiac signs, Inun no Shishi suddenly developed a strange feeling for her: love. As a result, she decided to resurrect Sharyu after winning the battle. To hell with the idea of a male harem. As for Tora, she is the only one whose wish was fulfilled, because she has already met the person she most wanted to see. Thus, the 12 battles came to an end. Nazumi, having forgotten everything, became an ordinary person and started a content life. He always looked satisfied, as if he had encountered something he had long wished for, fulfilling the only desire he truly wanted among the other 99 inconsequential wishes.